There's another thing that I pulled out that I thought was really relevant, and it's always interesting to me, is the biggest concern with DaaS is the cost. And I think what you see people do most of the time is they start with a laptop is $1,000 and a laptop is good for this many years. So therefore, I don't want to pay more than X dollars per month, right? They think they're doing the straight math on the ROI there. And when you are just doing straight math on the ROI, you're not actually considering all the costs that go into managing laptops. And I got to ship it to the person who needs it. Well, did you factor that in? It broke, I got to ship it back. Right now, what do I do? What are the other tools that I need to manage it? What about when that employee leaves and they don't give you the laptop back, and then you have to go buy a new one, right? What about that person's time that all they do is try to get a remote session into someone's laptop, and they can't move things around on their screen, and they can't help them solve their challenges? So I thought it was really interesting that Gartner pulled that out as one of the main things that is at least driving people's decision or their apprehension. We talked already about RTAV, but that driving some apprehension. What do you guys think? Because I think people just don't understand the overall ROI piece of deploying DaaS yet. Not to mention security, the risk that a laptop with your company's data is sitting in someone's car, and if it gets taken, right? Like, there's just so many more aspects to the cost of physically managing laptops and sending them to your employees that I just don't know that everybody's gotten there and understanding that when they're calculating that return on investment.
So I've had to crunch some numbers on this, just by virtue of working in sales engineering, especially out there, kind of helping with articulating what our messaging is. So I know what the numbers are. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to ask the three of you. Give me a number. What do you think is the percentage for like a small to medium enterprise of unreclaimed assets when a user leaves an organization?
50%. 50% don't come back is what I'm guessing.
Anybody else?
I'm gonna say 10%.
I'll go 75.
Okay. Don't come back.
Don't come back. So what percentage of assets go out in a small to medium sized enterprise that just never come back when a user leaves?
I think it's low, 10%.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right, Christian. It is 10%. So on the lower end, right? And that's for your average SME. Now, 10% doesn't sound high, but if we assume like a small to medium sized business is, let's say, like 1,000 to 1,500 users, right? The average turnover rate for 2022 was 27% for organizations out there. So that's 270, we'll keep the number simple. 270 devices that went out, 27 never came back. 27 laptops at $800 a laptop, that's $21,600 of your IT budget that's just gone, right? You put that money in a paper bag and lit it on fire. So it's really important. And Autumn, as you said, there's a whole other complexion to this, right? So 10% in small to medium sized enterprises. Same question, healthcare. The reason I asked the healthcare question is the most shocking thing to me in doing all of that, small to medium sized businesses, 10% loss, healthcare, because it's so regulated. I'd expect, because of Autumn, what you mentioned, right, with the risk of losing PII, PHI, EHR, healthcare doubled that in the same span, 10 to 20% asset loss upon reclamation. So, hopefully for all those organizations and all those patients whose data lives in those systems, those organizations are using something like a DaaS solution to ensure that their data never lives on those client devices that don't come back into the organization. Because, you think about what the costs of going through that breach process for, thousands of devices industry-wide, it's ridiculous.
I think, Autumn, my take on costs is more around maturity of the understanding of the value that DaaS brings to the enterprise and specifically to the end user. Because if we would all go back 7 years ago and all of us were doing private cloud hosting, right? Every time we were out in the market talking to someone, we'd all be like, hey, if you go to the hyperscalers, it's going to cost more. And I think that worked for a year or two. And then everyone realized the value that the hyperscales brought, and it aligns with what we have. We do have capacity on demand. We have the ability to scale up, scale down. We have the ability to offer new services. We have the ability to monitor and manage. We have the ability, it's extensibility, for APIs for people that want to, embed their provisioning system into our offerings. And so I think at some point people realize and will see that value. And I think cost goes away. And listening to Kevin's point that 10%, in normal corporations and 20%, in the healthcare, which is highly sensitive, doesn't get returned. And they're more worried about costs rather than security. I think, again, just validates that it's not a cost play. And I think people should really, get used to that. You're going to have an asset for people to use, to interact, to be, doing your day-to-day tasks.